We welcome you all to this event, a conversation around the book Black Matrilineage, Photography and Representation with book editors and co-creators of Women Picturing Revolution, Deschler Canossi and Zoraida Lopez-Diago. And they're joined by local photographer and doula, Jayana LaFountaine. And ever since hearing about this book, we've been looking forward to bringing Women Picturing Revolution to the Sanctuary for Independent Media. Women Picturing Revolution was co-founded by Deschler Canossi and Zoraida Lopez-Diago in 2016. This organization is dedicated to women identifying photographers who have documented conflicts and crises in private realms and public spaces. This year, they co-edited the book that we're presenting, Black Matrilineage, Photography and Representation, Another Way of Knowing, published by Leuven University Press and distributed by Cornell University Press in North America. We do have the book over here on the side, and there's also a QR code. You'll find a sheet in the front and in the cafe if you'd like to order it. And so Zoraida Lopez-Diago is a photographer, curator, and activist. Her work centers on amplifying the voices and narratives of people and places within the African diaspora, with a specific focus on themes encompassing gender, incarceration, migration, and climate change. In 2002, she played a pivotal role as the co-curator of Picturing Black Girlhood, a groundbreaking exhibition celebrating the creative expressions of over 80 Black women, girls, and genderqueer artists. To date, this remains the most extensive exhibition dedicated to Black girls worldwide. Zoraida is an environmental activist and co-founded Conservationists of Color, a nationally recognized platform for individuals of color engaged in the conservation movement. She also holds the position of Vice President of Communications, Development, and Strategic Partnership at the Glenwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, and resides in Beacon, New York with her husband and 2 sons. Leslie Deschler Canossi is an artist and photography educator. She holds an MFA from the Maryland Institute College of Art. Her research aims to reframe the history of photography, better reflecting a story of innovation that includes women. She's interested in, I just lost my spot. There we go. She's interested in creating conversations in support of deep creativity and representational justice. Leslie's personal teaching and practice centers on themes of care, mothering, and grief. Her course, Into the Fold, Mother-Artist Identity, which explores artist-parent identity through lens and performance-based works, was the first of its kind offered at a major photographic institution. Leslie is a faculty member at the International Center of Photography, and for over 14 years, Leslie ran Fiber Ink Studio printing for some of the world's greatest artists and institutions. She lives in Beacon, New York with her family on a micro homestead that includes honeybees. And when thinking about inviting a local photographer to be part of this conversation, our executive director, KP Holler, suggested inviting Jayana LaFountaine, whose work closely connects to the themes of this book. Jayana LaFountaine is an Afro-Latina portrait photographer and birth doula based in Troy, New York. Her work focuses on vulnerability and the preservation of legacy through photo documentation and birth work. As a former foster young youth with an adverse childhood, she understands the importance of creating strong familial connections through this work. She does this work with Black and brown folks at the forefront. Photography is a means for her to heal while creating a better reality outside of abuse and trauma. And birth work is her birthright, as she is the 4th generation birth worker. And we're very excited to welcome these women to the stage. And we're going to start with presentations, and then we will move to the seats and having a conversation. And I believe Jayana is going first. Oops. All right.
That's me. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Should I be using the mic? Do I need to use the mic?
The mic will be right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I have a big voice. So my name is... Oh, we're recording this, so I do need to use the mic. So my name is Jayana LaFountaine, and I don't have words on my presentation because I have them here in my heart, in my mind, and I always speak from there. Thank you, Media Sanctuary, for having me. I appreciate you guys. And thank you to Zoraida and Leslie for making such a phenomenal book. Very exciting. So I'll start with a little bit about myself. So the photos on the screen is little me in the middle and both sides of me. One of me frolicking barefoot outside, and then the other one of me in a museum where I like to be at, looking, pretty cool and casual, because that's who I am. I was born February 20th, 1995. I am the daughter of Diana Espinoza, the granddaughter of Elisa Espinoza, the great-granddaughter of Leopolda Martinez, and the great-great-granddaughter of Faustina Roches. And these are my women, my matrilineage, if you will. And without them, I wouldn't be here. And I like to introduce myself that way, thanks to a colleague, Dr. Kamala Rashad. She helped me realize how important it is to name our ancestors and name the women that came before me that are the reason why I'm here today. So yeah, that's me. And this is my mother. This is Deanna. She's phenomenal. She's great. She's my favorite. I look like her. I am funny like her. And I'm going to show you all the people I just named. This is my grandmother, Elisa Espinoza. She's super cute. She's wearing Converse in this middle picture. She was like 7. And we always talk about how she was wearing Converse in this picture. Because I was like, Grandma, are those Converse? Because when I believe I was like 13, she adopted my brother and I always begged for these Converse. She was like, why do you want the shoes I wore when I was 7? And she showed me this picture, and I was like, oh, you weren't lying. They're really old. But yeah, this is my grandmother. This is my great-grandmother, my grandmother's mother. She's really cute and funny. Very funny woman. Love her. And this is my abuelita Faustina. She is the reason why I am a birth worker. And it wasn't until I started doing birth work when my grandmother shared with me that she was a midwife in Honduras, in our village, Puerto Cortez. And every single baby that was born, she caught. Anyone that needed fertility help would visit her. And I didn't know that this was part of my history until I became a doula and shared with my grandmother that I wanted to do birth work. And she was like, oh my goodness, this is what your great-great-grandmother did, and how did you know? And I was like, I had no idea. But they didn't share these pictures with me. I had to dig for them. And as soon as I found them, I was really happy because she truly encompasses who I am today. A lot of her energy lives within me. She was definitely a person that would chase you with a machete, but also the same woman that would help you birth your child. And I am nurturing, but I carry a machete. So that's who I am as well. And then I have my foster mother, and this is Jacqueline Haygood. And she is the catalyst for why I became a photographer, actually. She passed away when I was 13, about 4 days before Christmas, and I felt really heartbroken that we didn't have any photos outside of this photo. This is the only photo that I have with her. And I was upset about it, and I had asked my grandmother if she could buy me a camera. And it was 4 days before Christmas, so it was a big ask, and she gave me like this small little point and shoot on Christmas so that I could have it when I went to my mom Jackie's funeral for New Year's. And ever since then I had vowed to never miss a photo again because it's important to me that there's proof that we were here, that we existed, especially as Black women, when erasure is so prevalent for us. But yeah, that's my mom Jackie, and she's also my everything. I have a lot of mothers. I've been mothered quite a bit. I'm a birth doula and a photographer, and this was actually the birth that was the catalyst for me becoming a doula. I attended this birth after asking Facebook if someone was having a baby and if they would let me take pictures, which is a very weird ask to do on Facebook. But this woman responded and she was like, I am 100% open to you taking photos. I'm being induced on Tuesday. And I was like, thank you, stranger. I love you. And she really was gracious and allowed me into her space, and she didn't have much support, so naturally I fell into the role of supporting her and making sure she was okay while she was bringing life into the world. And I watched as nurses and doctors came in and they were super coercive to this Black woman, and I was offended by it, but I couldn't do anything because I was just a photographer there. And when I left this birth, I left differently. I went onto Google and I was like, how can I help Black women during birth without becoming a midwife? And I found the word doula, and I just fell into a rabbit hole, which I always do. I'm a rabbit hole faller. So I fell into a rabbit hole and found a bunch of programs, and there were some blockades because they were like $2,000-$3,000, and I didn't have that money at the time. And then I reached out to BirthNet, and they were having a training that they were going to fund, which was really nice. So I got to do that for about $175, which is tremendous. And I became a birth doula. And of course, because I'm already a photographer, I'm already in the space with these people who are giving me an insane amount of trust. I take photos as well of each birth. And that's how I kind of got into being a doula. And then always my photos. But yeah, I think that's me. I've given you the smallest version because I can sit here and talk for like 3 hours about my work. But I want to save some of that for our conversation. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And next we'll bring up keynote. You. Where's? Thank you. There we go. And now Leslie Deschler Canossi and Zoraida Lopez-Diago of Women Picturing Revolution.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Zoraida and I are so thankful to Sina and everyone here at this incredible resource. It really is something very special. So thank you.
Thanks so much to everyone for coming out. I know it can be hard to come out on a Saturday night. It's starting to get a little chilly, so thank you to this incredible space. It's so nice to see familiar faces here too. And just thank you for welcoming us.
And thank you, Janna. So we're just gonna give a little background about Women Picturing Revolution, which is how Sina came to know us, and that teaching practice, and then we'll pivot into the book. So we'll get started. Mm-hmm. All right, and I'm driving, so hopefully I'll do a good job here. Oh, I did a bad job already. I hear you laughing over there. Hold on. There we go. Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so I just want to move it forward, arrow forward. Yeah? I would guess with you. Okay, so I'm going to have you take over and see. Nope. Sorry, everyone. We'll hold this just for a second. I mean, we could get started talking about our teaching project, Women Picturing Revolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tonight we're going to really sit in a conversation. We're going to look at some of the overall themes of Women Picturing Revolution, and then we're also going to talk about a handful of artists that we have spoken about in our panels and our lectures, in addition to sharing some work from the book. So WPR was created in an effort to really expand on the conversation that we have around female photographers who document conflict and crisis and revolution in private realms and in public spaces. With this work, we really hope to shed light on personal and political experiences that are often overlooked and underrepresented. From fine art photography made as a response to forced silence, oppression, and the inability to act, to well-known visual journalists documenting upheaval. Together, along with all of you tonight, we examine not only photographs, but the conditions under which women make images. Much, if not most of the work we share is not made directly in combat, but it really speaks to the effects of conflict, of suppression, of multi-generational trauma, and the dislocation of people. From deeply personal images to those that serve to change public policy, each of the artists that we speak about in the literal sense is picturing revolution.
Stay there. Okay, now we're good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Sina. I apologize. Thank you, Zoraida. I know it's a little distracting, right?
No, totally fine.
Great. So we'll just run through this very quickly. Thank you for your patience. So these are just some of the events we've done since 2016. It really is a teaching project. I have a longtime photo arts educator at the International Center of Photography, and Zoraida and I were working together on you curated a show called Women as Witness, and I had printed to help out with that show. And we're just very interested, as Zoraida said, in women making work around conflict, so both at home and outward looking. So we were just really delighted. It took off right away. We were able to invite conflict photographers, fine art photographers. The work on the screen above is Hudson had a photo fest, and the work of Nona Faustine was one of the artists who later appears in the book in a full chapter in the curated section and throughout the introduction. So at this point, these are folks that we knew and were coming to know a little better, and just really so interested in their work and sharing their work. And this is a couple years before the book. So.
And so as Leslie mentioned, I co-curated a show with a photographer and photo writer, Kiana Mestrick. And Jayana, when you mentioned Facebook, this show, one of the ways it really got started was a call out on Facebook for women who were documenting resilience, resistance, and survival across the globe. And we had an incredible response. And as Leslie mentioned, she was really involved in this project, especially around printing the works of the artists that couldn't ship us their images. And so one of the artists that responded was this woman, Heba Khalifa. She's an Egyptian artist who made self-portraits with her child while she was confined at home during the Arab Spring. And so she writes about this, and she says, the domestic space becomes the site of uprising, of resistance, and of newfound freedom. We really found these images to be very raw and confrontational, and these images really gets to the core of the often hushed experiences of motherhood. And it also looks at the additional responsibilities that women face when a revolution occurs. Mm-hmm. So as men were in the streets protesting, she was at home in this personal conflict while she was caring for her child.
Mm-hmm. And this is, did you say this is during the Arab Spring?
Yep.
Okay, so there's, I think, 5 or 6 areas that we usually cover in a class and a session. Gender-based violence, migration and displacement,
landscapes of war, environmental degradation, and climate change.
Education, revolution and reclamation.
And then just to talk a little bit about some of our workshops that we've had. So in 2016, we were able to have a seminar at the International Center of Photography, and we were joined by a photographer and activist, an educator and founder of Another Kind of Girl Collective. And Another Kind of Girl Collective does a lot of work. At that point, they were doing work with young women at the Zatari refugee camp. At that point, that was the largest refugee camp in the world. And a young woman, Chaldea, a Syrian filmmaker, made this film about her life. And this film was in like Cannes and like the LA, Sundance, LA Film Festival, and no one ever interviewed her about her work. And Leslie and I were really, really fortunate to be able to have her Skype in during our class from the refugee camp.
So Laura Dodgett is the organizer of this. It's an ongoing, I think it's in multiple countries at this point, where she works with young women, teaching them photography and filmmaking skills so they can tell the story in their voice. It's really quite an amazing foundation. And she was willing to figure out a translator and Zoom and all outside the refugee camp so we could have this young woman in the class. It was really like such a beautiful moment. I think that's the same class that Sheila Pre-Bright Zoomed into as well, which was really exciting. So we're doing all this to kind of show you, the relationships we're building with different artists, and really always looking for a way, as you do here at the Sanctuary, to highlight the voices of others and artists and folks that you really want their stories to be told by them. So this was a class that you want to talk about Columbia, yeah?
Sure. Okay. So I was a consultant at Columbia University's, their Institute for Research of African American Studies, IRIS, and we were fortunate to be able to teach a workshop. It was a full day workshop on women photographers, Black women photographers, and we had an incredible response. And we were able to bring in Nona Faustine to the class and Ayanna V. Jackson, and both of those photographers are in the book. And Ayanna V. Jackson has this line that I think sticks with us so much, where she talks about fighting photography with photography, and she also talks about just the impact of having positive images from generations before of her family, similar to the images that that you showed, Jayana, and how that just influenced her, and how that was a combat to all the kind of negative, stereotypical images that she was seeing on TV of Black people during that time.
Right, so the images in her home, she would talk about when she came down the stairs as a teenager, would counter the images that she would see on TV, right, of her family. So she knew very young that she was going to use photography to fight photography. It's really, her work is quite amazing in this way. And Nona Faustine, who we spent a lot of time looking at her work, her entire talk was very rooted in the notion of matrilineage, mother tongue, mother language, her relationship to land and history. So this is really where something we were interested in really came to fruition. And then we were very fortunate that Leuven University Press reached out to us about a possible book project. So that was really lucky. So this is when we started the book project. And then I think what we'll do is we'll pivot and do a little bit of reading from the book, if you will indulge us, and then we'll get in conversation.
The link between photography, representation, and Black activism can be traced back to the early days of the median, when prominent abolitionists and orators Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass understood how images could mold narratives. Both Truth and Douglass knew that through photography, they could engage in what scholar Lee Rayford calls critical Black memory, or how photography could serve as, quote, an important resource for framing and mobilizing African American social and political identities and movements. Douglass frequently wrote about photography and deeply understood how it could serve as a necessary tool for Black people across the globe to be seen and represented as fully human. With this in mind, he demonstrated what Black freedom and dignity looked like, confident, in control, and unafraid. When he posed throughout his lifetime and became the most photographed person in the 19th century. Fellow abolitionist, women's rights activist, and orator Sojourner Truth sold carte de visites or small size photographed, often mounted on cardboard, which included the phrase, "I sell the shadow to support the substance," Sojourner Truth, at her lectures and via the Postal Service to earn a living. As she became increasingly popular, Truth shrewdly registered her carte de visite as engravings and in turn legally owned the copyright of her image in her etchings. Upon this, Truth reflected, she used to be sold for other people's benefit. Now she sold herself for her own. This double oppression of racism and sexism, bound to the social stigmas of motherhood, situates the overwhelming visual representation of Black motherhood as a site of grief and disempowerment, layered with mythologies tied to what Patricia Collins calls controlling images. In this, Black mothers are offered a limited script of mammy, matriarch, welfare queen, or Jezebel, as they are not afforded the full range of emotional expression. In her 1993 essay, Racism and Patriarchy in the Meaning of Motherhood, Dorothy E. Roberts examines the interaction between racism and patriarchy in the social construction of motherhood. She argues the patriarchy denied to Black mothers the authority and joy of mothering, which it allowed to white mothers.
Yeah? Okay. Do you want me to go? Yeah. You read a little more?
The deep and expansive exploration into the topic of Black women in photographic history can be found in The Black Female Body, A Photographic History by Deborah Willis and Carla Williams. Through this research, we see examples of 19th century photography that used Black female bodies to support colonialism, scientific evolution via medical apartheid, and the sexualizing and fetishizing of Black women and girls. In post-emancipation and post-Reconstruction, the desire to act, rather be acted upon, to be a subject rather than an object, to hold with regard to representation. In contemporary image making, not unlike Truth's radical understanding of the medium, Black women photographers have used their own likeness and those of other Black women to create an autobiography of the body and to develop themes of home, family, gender, representation, and identity in contemporary society.
The act of re-envisioning how we see and make images is one in which Black female artists are tethered to the matrilineal precursor. And the connection is not rooted in a legacy filled with guilt, shame, or burden, but rather full of devotion and love. Black women and artists bind themselves together in a manner to continue the quest for Black freedom and ensure their histories are not forgotten and bring forward the spirit of their ancestors, both familial and artistic. In Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, a New American Grammar book, literary critic and Black feminist scholar Hortense Spillers remind us that motherhood, capital H-O-O-D, is a status granted by the patriarchy to white middle-class women, those women whose legal rights to their children are never questioned regardless of who does the labor of keeping them alive. Other mothering is deeply rooted in principles of African collectivism and defined as a practice by which female neighbors, sisters, aunties, grandmothers, or other women step up and care for the children they have not biologically birthed. Where we find other mothering, we often find extended communities concerned with mutual care, public health, and social activism. Black motherhood and other mothering continue to exist in these ways as mothering of the mind, as a means to share knowledge, build confidence through the sisterhood that binds women together.
Black matrilineage photography representation and another way of knowing begins with an analysis of Black mothers to create innovative countercultures and communal digital networks in a manner similar to Truth and Douglas, while generating new visual representations demonstrating the complexity of Black life. These themes serve as the underlying thread in More Black and More Beautiful, Social Media and Digital Culture in Rewriting the Self, the first section of this book. The second section, titled Turning the Face of History to Your Face, Seeing the Self Through Representations of Black Motherhood, considers the role of photographs as both a family and community archive in rerouting the Black experience to a place grounded in truth, depth, dignity, and pride. The second section ends with a poem by historian Sasha Turner, which calls on the reader to reckon with imperialism, white supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy.
I think we're going to skip right to this. Looks like some of the slides were dropped, but that's okay. So the book is in I think we said 5 sections. We'll just talk a little bit about it and get into some of the images in the book. We're just quite proud of all the contributors. It was a series of both an open call, reaching out to folks, and other folks finding us to put the book together. Let's see here, we'll have, this was an image, for example, that circulated on Instagram, which was such an incredible, powerful moment. We reached out to the creator of the image, and she kindly gave us permission to use this image.
This was an image in the foreword of our book, written by Salamisha Tillett and Scheherazade Tillett, of their mother, and they speak in the foreword about how they frequently looked at their mother's photo album. She was a model, and their father was a photographer and frequently photographed her.
Mm-hmm. And what we really want to highlight, and also as we were reading, we were purposely not showing certain images that are maybe coming up in your mind. One of the things we thought about a lot with this book was working with both emerging writers, artists, and very well known. It was very important for us to work with everyone and make space for everyone, and Leuven was very interested in that. And also the inclusion of family pictures, which was something we were really excited about, to ask folks, can we have a picture, if they had written about their mother, grandmother, can we have a picture of your grandmother and can we print it? Which was really exciting for us too.
Special.
In an academic book, we thought that was something special. For example, there's an interview in the book with Kelly Carter Jackson, a historian, and Tomi Akantunde, I usually call her Tomi, and these are pictures that we offered for them. They offered us of when they were little girls, and they both had very different experiences with their mother, so that was exciting.
This is from one of our favorite essays in the book, Raisa Williams. She talks about the 3 generations of women in her life: her mother, her aunts and her grandmothers, and how they really supported each other to ensure that even though they were mothers, they were still women. They were still able to go out and enjoy themselves and go to clubs and go dancing. And we really wanted to highlight the joy and the sisterhood and the community that Black mothers continue to have.
Mm-hmm. We were really excited when we read this one. And again, representation of Black motherhood, which also includes loss and miscarriage. This is an incredible image by Miranda Barnes. It was a New York Times story about, I believe, an Amazon worker who miscarried at work because when she spoke about being tired and having pain, she wasn't given breaks. It was quite an important story. So we wanted to include the gamut of that experience.
And this is a few images by Zanelli Muhali. She talks quite a bit about her mother and the influence that her mother had on her work. Her mother was a domestic worker in South Africa, and she just talks about quite a bit how the protest in South Africa and her mother's role in the protest influences her work today.
Mm-hmm. And in this series, as you can see, it's quite a long series. They're using the domestic items of the domestic. So these are kind of the scouring pads that you use to clean dishes, and of course the pins that you hang laundry. And Marcia Michael is an artist based in London in UK, and she does incredible work, multimedia work, photography, video, scanning, 3D printing. She's a sculptor, and she was specifically trying to almost, would you say, re-embody her mother's voice. And as her mother was ill for a while, and she sat with her mother and photographed her mother, and her mother, it's just such an incredible story. We'll read a bit about it, but trying to learn her mother's language, her mother tongue language. She's just an extraordinary artist. But we can, I think now at this point, I can read, we can read here. Okay, so the question is, how do Black women artists hear the calls of their maternal bonds, both living and dead? The whispers from the motherland spoken in a mother tongue. What do the answers look like? The visual exploration of Black motherhood through pictures made by Black female-identifying photographers serves as a response to the call, a reflection of the past and a portal to the future. While there's no one story told by these artists, there is a thread that connects their images and brings a material reality. In this, these artists begin to fill the gaps of representation of Black mothers and mothering of what Audre Lorde named the erotic or the assertion of the life force of women.
This act of knowing is often told in the secret language passed between mothers, daughters, kin, and defies time, as seen in the works. And Jayana, I was actually thinking I would add your name here, just thinking of this description of Lebu Hong, Kanye, Adama Delphine, Fawundu, Keisha Scarville, and Marsha Michael, who reminds us that when we search for our mothers, in order to find ourselves. Artist Nydia Blas reveals a visual meditation that is delicately spun into a mythical allegory, with young Black women and girls fulfilling the roles of mothers, of warriors, of sirens, and saints. Photographer, writer, and curator Kiana Mestrick continues this repositioning of Black women and Black mothers in particular by properly placing them as the original makers and their children as collaborators with both inseparable connections to nature in the images included in this section. Andrea Chung's intricate and tactile collages elevate materials of the everyday and the natural world while examining history, slavery, medicine, connections to the mother and motherland, and how Black women continue to serve as the protectors of mothers, of women, and of babies. Through the use of collage, found objects, and magazine cuttings, artist Wengechi Mutu creates portraits that further explore colonialism, fetishization, and the impact of medical apartheid on Black women.
Notions of dignifying the ordinary are further explored by Deanna Lawson and Micheline Thomas, who reveal the divine matrilineal legacy and Black women in particular to locate, quote, the magnificent and have it come through in the picture, end quote. Sure. Placing Black women in control of their image and legacy by unraveling false histories connecting to the place is seen in the works of Nona Faustine and Samantha Box, who describes in the chaos of how these slippery intersections, there's a chance to measure my naughty, personal, ancestral, and historical narrative. And we mentioned Ayanna earlier, and while partaking in memory work, Ayanna V. Jackson evokes history through unearthing the links to the past, unveiling and questioning what we have been taught to forget. In the photographs and three-dimensional creations, Vanessa German and Mary Sabande create a world that is self-affirming, exploratory, and fantastical. And this world is one that incorporates elements of Afrofuturism, articulates the present and future experience that insists on the presence of Black women and girls made by Black women and girls. The artists in this special curated section serve as a talisman conjuring maternal and matrilineal legacies while reclaiming innate brilliance of Black women through their personal stories, history, political acts, connections to place, moments of pleasure, and communal celebration.
Research for this volume began in 2018, and throughout its creation, Leslie and I were working together but in separate households less than a mile away. Our separation was due to a global pandemic that left the world with no choice but to bear witness to the murders of Black women, of Black men, and of Black children. and we hear the voice of George Floyd crying out for his mother with his last breath. Black mothers have not only been summoned at the moment, but have been answering this call as community anchors since time immemorial. Black mothers continue to be truth bearers, showing all of us another way of knowing. The question is, will we listen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a very interactive book. I got lost in the documentaries that are noted in here, the writings, and then going to search for more writings from some of the authors, some of the contributors, and then also every single photo that I saw in this book. I had to go on Instagram and look up the artist. I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna go find more of their work. And then I went on everyone's websites and found out more about, Black midwives that I didn't know were around. I believe it's chapter 10, 11, and 12, right, for talks about like Black birth. And I just love this book. It's phenomenal. And it completely aligns with the work that I do as a doula and a photographer, of course. So thank you guys. One of the first things that I wanted to ask was how does it feel to be a professional witness? Because to be witnessed is to be considered and loved at the highest degree in my mind. And I think that as photographers, we are professional witnesses. So what is that like for the both of you?
Okay. I would say, I think with this book in particular, Leslie and I really wanted to open up even what the term professional meant, because all too often in academic settings, Black people are innate knowledge and experiences are not considered professional. And even when we get PhDs and get masters, it's still not considered valid.
It's never enough, yeah.
And so we really wanted to break that open. Leuven was a really good publisher, but we had to have conversations with them, especially about some of the writers in the book. They're Black women who do incredible work, but they don't have PhDs, they don't have university backing. We don't have university backing. I mean, I was a consultant at Columbia. I was not a Columbia employee or a professor in any sense. And so I think even just the fact that this academic and publisher was able to work with us to create this book really kind of breaks open who is considered professional, because all too often it's just been way too close.
Yeah,
Right.
Thank you for saying that and dispelling like that profession part, because I think for me, I feel a lot of insecurity around the fact that I don't have a college degree, and when someone asks me to talk about my work and use like the academic jargon, if you will, it's hard for me to do that because I embody the work that I do more than I talk about it, because I just do it. And so that's why I don't think I ever understood just how important it was for me to have a camera and for me to take the photos that I take of the people that I do, like having Black women, more specifically Black mothers in front of my camera, how revolutionary that is. And I thought that I needed somebody's degree or backing from someone. I'm like, what's professional? So thank you for saying that.
I love the word, I don't know if you have to lean into this. I love that how you framed it as witness. I think that's really beautiful. I often think of photographers as observers, right? That we're always observing, right? And what do we do with all that observation? But as a teacher, my job for the past 15 years is to work with photographers. I work with adults and teens, and I love that you came to photography at, you said 13, 12?
Yeah, like 12.
Right,
Yeah.
I was like 15, and I'll tell you, it's a lifesaver for some of us, right? But my job is to sit with people who are trying to do really difficult projects and take them from hearing the idea, building the confidence, and getting them through. And then you're really just a witness. You're a witness who's kind of, you know, moving them on the path gently without them knowing that you're kind of supporting them.
Right.
So that idea of witness is really beautiful, and also just how do we hold space and make space for all this incredible work that's happening? Because we know from the inside, is in our art circles, right? We know what the work is about that folks are making. We know what Nona's work is about, but everything she references maybe isn't available in one space. So we really wanted to create a book that, as you said, you can sit down and just kind of, I call it the Pandora's box, like bibliography trail.
100%.
Right, it's like, it would be amazing to go to a library and just to pull one book and then pull all the like all the pieces. So you're using it in the way that we had really dreamed about it, right? So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's a great way to think about working as a witness.
Thank you. And I think I don't use the word observer personally as a photographer, because I'm like, I don't want people to, I don't know, it just gives me like bystander kind of energy, and you're just there.
Mm-hmm.
So observing is not the same as witnessing.
Yeah.
Like witnessing someone's humanity and their duality, right? And when we're talking about Black motherhood, like it's been stated in the book, like we have like boxes you can check, the Mamie, the Jezebel.
Yeah.
Like there's just a couple of things you can be. And for me, one of my favorite sets of photos is portraits that I took of my sister, Chelsea, who had her 5th baby, and their postpartum photos where she's in the hospital in her disposable underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I was witnessing her humanity and her Black motherhood outside of wrangling 5 kids and yelling, and outside of the systemic, oppression that she's a part of, and outside of like what people think of her. I just saw her softness, and I call it postpartum softness. That kind of witnessing is so important. And sometimes I feel like that's one of my favorite things, is to be witnessed. I don't need a hug. I don't need well wishes. I don't need, the false niceties. I would like to be actually witnessed in my wholeness. So, Zoraida, you're a Black mother. Can you talk a bit about what motherhood means to you, and then also how you maintain yourself outside of mothering and being a partner as well to someone?
I just wanted to reflect on just kind of this word witness, and it reminded me of years ago when the first time I came back from doing this project in Colombia that you referenced. I went to one of Deborah Willis's conference, and I heard Jamel Shabazz speak, and he's just, he's so giving, amazing photographer, and I asked him to look at my work, and I think we were like meeting in a park, and he saw this young Black couple, and he just said, Zoraida, I have to stop talking for a minute. And he went over to this couple, and he goes everywhere with his camera, and he had a book of his work, and he said, I see the light in you, you are a king, you are a queen. And I think sometimes photographers as being a witness, see something in people that they don't even see in themselves.
Yes.
And he is so good at that. And when you were talking about, your sister and your work, I think, and just being a Black mother, there are so many just false ideas of what a Black mother is, that it is easy to believe all the just negative, horrible things out there.
Right.
And to just forget the intrinsic power and beauty and just multi-dimensional aspects of life that Black mothers, we were the creators of all life. It's amazing, right? And we're just force-fed visual representations and little representations that make us deny that.
Right.
And so I think this book is a good clapback.
Oh, 100%. That club photo was my favorite. I was like,
yes,
they're in the club because they can be, and they're moms.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite images. The work of Marley, she talks about her her life in this book, and she just talks also about being a mother and still being a sexual being. And we're taught, I mean, all mothers are just, you know, we're just kind of put in this category.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, I have definitely, I don't want to be that and kind of push against that. And I think I have 2 boys. I think it's incredibly important for boys and girls just to see motherhood being so varied. And I think it's important for, you know, children, I have mixed race children, for them to see a Black mother that is like powerful, can be soft, can be sad, can be happy, and just reflecting all that humanity entails.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just taking everything. I'm just sitting here listening, but I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I was talking about in the workshop that we were doing how when women become mothers, that's it, you're done. And it's just like, no. I was just letting the folks in my workshop know like how I've gone back to my mother as we go through photo albums, and I'm like, you know, I don't know anything about you because you're a person. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And how can we explore this relationship further? And I think so many things to say here.
That Women is Witness show, I specifically wanted to do that right after I had Marcel, because I did not want to fall into that trap. You know, like I didn't. I just, and I remember my husband Mike came and brought Marcel, and he was like 9 months. He was wearing him. He was such a little baby, but just to kind of push against that narrative that Leslie and I talk about like all the time.
Yeah, it's a terrible narrative. And Leslie, I saw some of the pictures that you took on your site of your babies.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Every time I read this book a lot, and I've looked at the cover a million times, and I always, another way of knowing, like, what does that mean for the both of you? Like, what are other ways of knowing? I'm always just like, for me personally, I think another way of knowing is capturing the softness, because like you said, we're being force-fed all of this negative information about Black women and Black mothers. My way of knowing is capturing everybody existing as they are.
Yeah.
And I always say, my joy is my protest. So I'm gonna post pictures of my sister and her kids smiling. I'm gonna post a picture of my mother and my grandmother together. I'm gonna go get pictures of my great-grandmother. My way of knowing is I see joy every day in this family, and it's worth capturing and celebrating, so I'm gonna do that, and that's my revolution. So I guess, like, what's another way of knowing for the both of you?
Sure. I mean, another way of knowing came from Toni Morrison, right? This idea of, I won't try to, but you know, but Marcia Michael, the artist who was working with her mother, working on kind of being a conduit for her mother's language, for her mother's lived experience, for her mother's breath. I mean, this work goes really deep. Yeah. And she talks about, it's almost something that's like a transcendent thing where she wanted to know her mother so deeply, the soul of her mother and all the mothers before her. I mean, on a spiritual level, right? And she referred to that being another way of knowing her matrilineal line, right? For me, it just translates as a kind of like and this is more of kind of nuts and bolts, but again, how we approach the book, we didn't do it the way it was expected. For us, that was just a different way to do it, right? Another way to introduce this work outside of an academic space, right? Because we're not academics, right? Yeah. I find that the older I get, I'm always looking for alternate ways to do things, think about things. I'm working with a lot of young photographers who are, third generation born digital, right? And they have a completely different way of doing things that breaks rules. Also, like, who's telling those stories? All of it. I mean, I might be going off track a little bit, but for me, it's always like, what are the ways we haven't seen something? How can we tell it in a different way? And I do struggle. You find yourself kind of always going to the default, and it's pushing it. And for my own self, I lost my mother when I was 26, a long time ago. It's over half my life now, almost. And I have yet to make my own work about the loss of my mother. And actually, when driving here today, I realized like this book is dedicated to her. I'm looking at Zoraida, so I might cry. But she's so in this book as well. And that grief, I'm starting to really look at grief and as another way of knowing. I don't know if that's making sense.
No, it is,
For me to
absolutely.
lean into grief, that's my own personal grief and not a student's grief or someone else's grief. It's pushing me.
Yeah.
I'm not making any sense. But
No, you were making
that's
complete
why I tell you,
sense.
thank you for doing this book with me because, you know, she's in here as well. And this, everything that we've, you know, lost, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of another way of knowing, I think of the things of the past that we knew that we forgot. And I think of
yeah.
Andrea Chung, and she talks about how the legacy of like midwives in her family in Jamaica, and how these women they knew motherhood. They just knew the process of helping women birth babies. And then when Western medicine came in, these women and their practices were considered like dirty and just were just really diminished.
Subjected to that professionalism.
Yeah, and put to the side, and how we had these ways of knowing that were the way of knowing, and how it got pushed to the side, and now we're hoping to kind of bring it back
Yeah.
and have those ways of knowing counter, and they serve as the other ways of knowing.
Yeah, I don't like to say it out loud all the time, but I feel like I'm just a carbon copy of my abuelita Faustina, because when you think about like reaching back for those ancestral gifts, like they knew what they were doing, and there was no academia involved. There were no schooling. Like they just knew. And there's a lot of the work that I do, like I said before, like I just embody my work, and I don't know how, I don't know why, and I'm just like, it's just my lineage living through me. So I'm like, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been dormant. So that is also another way of knowing for me, like waking that up and just reaching back, like, because we don't need permission to reach back and revive those things that we knew. Like we just know, like they're just there. They're just so innate, and I love it. And I can get lost in like Andrea Chung's work because I really appreciate it. Because also being Afro-Latina and being like, we're from Honduras, so like, you know, the Caribbean, like all of those things, everything just hit every chord in my body through this book. And her work was really important because I have been reading Dorothy Roberts' Killing the Black Body.
Yeah.
And medical apartheid. I'm reading all of these things, and then this book came to me, and I was like, oh, a break from all of the madness, because it's crazy to witness that erasure on such a huge level, like having 1% of births being delivered, you know, by midwives now, when it was well over like 50, 60, 70%. In my grandmother's lifetime is so insane. And that erasure, like through birth and through photography, because like you said, like fighting photography with photography is really real. So I find myself taking photos during like births, right? And when I share them, it's to combat like those negative, all of the graphs and all the things that tell us like Black women are dying during birth only, right? I share a bunch of photos where it's like, look at this beautiful Black birth. Nobody was harmed. There was no coercion here. There was love. There was joy here. There was safety. There was trust. And I think that's part of my way of knowing differently and also fighting like that erasure. I guess, I don't know, yeah, it's a lot, but it's important work, and this book is super important. Especially, I'm really happy that it includes new work too, because that's like just there's another generation here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we both really wanted to pay homage to like, you know, I remember when Renee Cox, I remember when you told me, like, Renee Cox said yes.
I was walking in the woods and I missed her call. I was so mad.
You're walking in the woods. You're like, Renee Cox
I
called
was
me.
taking care of
I remember, like, when Renee Cox came in and Deb Willis, like, right away, everyone that we wanted,
Very
and
kind.
more, you know.
Very kind.
Like, our dream team said yes.
Yeah, and I think that's, I was thinking about, you know, I told you on the phone when we spoke that Dorothy Roberts is like my hero.
Yeah, mine too.
Amazing. And, you know, talking a little bit about photography, that essay that she wrote, Racism and the Patriarchy and the Meaning of Motherhood, that essay. And there are no pictures, right? It's not about pictures, but it's so visual, and it had us really thinking, you have these papers that are so influential, but they don't have any kind of, in this case, they weren't linking up necessarily with visual culture. She mentioned Patricia Collins, of course, and the tropes. But how do we create something that has those kinds of essays come to life? And in fact, recently, and I haven't told you this yet, I've had 3 students, 1 teen and 2 in their 20s, tell me they wanted to do work about being a Black woman, motherhood, and visual culture, and all the questions they wanted to know, I said, well, you know, there's this PDF, because this is available online for free. We got a grant. We're so excited. You should check it out. And it was listening to them talk about kind of that discovering Carrie Mae Weems for the first time, kitchen table series, you know, not knowing that work like this has already been made for decades, right? Just decades.
Yeah.
And for them, and as young artists, to be able to find a book that's in the art world, that has the pictures, and then also does the deep dive of the essays. I think that's just, again, another way of knowing. I don't know if that's making much sense, but it makes it's just beautiful to know that resource is there. And that we like touch the surface. There's so much out there.
So much. I found a lot of things.
You
with
know,
this
so
book.
I know.
Yeah, and, you know, I remember Leslie and I, we spoke at a conference at the Tate, and it's Fast Forward Women's Conference, and a woman said something about, like, where are the Black artists, the Black women artists in France? She said there are no Black women.
She said, I can't find them.
And I said, you're just not looking. You know, just because you don't know it exists doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yes.
You're just not looking. You're not in that world, and just that's part of that erasure of Black women. If it doesn't exist to a white streaming audience, if they don't know about it, they don't think it exists, right?
Right.
And of course, I mean, of course there are Black women photographers in Paris.
Hello.
The picturing Black portraitures just had a conference in Paris around Black photography. And so I think this book also serves as like a counter to those questions of, you know, there are no Black photographers in the
It's
UK.
crazy. I don't even know how people say things
just
like
kind
this.
of these bizarre.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
We have to say we're so honored to sit with you because, you know, the work that you do and how you came to that work is, it's so meaningful, and it's, you know, it's really, you know, when Andrea Chung's essay came in from Nicole Carruth and a couple others, really, we really would have loved also to do a whole book just around doulas and birth work and birth activism. So I just want to thank you, because this is really, and Sina, thank you for organizing this, because you are exactly, the fact that you're a photographer and a doula and is exactly the person that, if anyone else, if you like this book, that's it. I don't really, because we have nothing but love and respect. And
Thank
also
you.
as a photographer, your work is just so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Really astonishing work. And it's not easy what you do to get into that intimacy. And I love, and I don't know if do we have time to talk about, is you mentioned in your talk that you saw how the woman who was being approached and kind of, you used the word coercion, right?
Yeah.
Into making decisions about her, was it her epidural?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not fun to witness that. Again, she was by herself. I had come in to take pictures. I didn't know what an induction was at the time because I wasn't privy to the ins and outs of birth yet. And I spent 27 plus hours with her. And I helped her because, again, I'm taking photos, but I'm like, this woman's also in pain, so maybe I should put my camera down and rub her back real quick, which I did. Yeah. And though she was in pain, she was handling it very well. She was coping well. And every time she would have a contraction, the nurses station, they can see them outside. Like when folks are having contractions, they have like this whole monitor that they can see. But when she would start a contraction, a nurse would come in and say, hey, do you want an epidural yet? And she was just like, no. She declined like 5-6 times. Every single time they came in, she said no. And about the 7th time, she said, fine, just I'll take it, whatever. And her daughter was born an hour later, and she was really, really upset. Like, she was happy that her daughter was there, but there was like a few hours after her baby was here where she was just so upset that she got an epidural because she knew she could do it without it. Right. And she just had given up her control. She was like just completely upset, and it upset me to like have to witness this woman, like she's got her new baby here and she can't even enjoy this child because she's like grieving the fact that she didn't birth her baby the way she wanted to. And I was just like, there's no way I can be a witness to that kind of medical violence, because that's what it is. And some people think that's like a very big word to use, but I think that's exactly what it is. It's violent. And not do anything else outside of like be in birthing spaces and taking pictures. And again, through like my Google searches, I found like what it is to be a doula, and I was like, I'm already a doula. Like, it's something that I do naturally. And I just dove headfirst, and it made so much sense, and it felt like like the most absolute correct thing that I've ever done in my entire life. Like, I've never, sorry. Now I'm gonna cry. Yeah. But I had never made like such a sound decision where I knew like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and birth work was that. And I went and made sure that I went and got Reiki energy work done, and I was going places, because I always tell folks I'm never going to take you anywhere I'm not willing to go. So before I enter anyone's birth space, I made sure to take care of my body, my mind, my soul, and I had lost a child, and I was just like, I need to make sure that my womb is ready to help other people, so I'm not bringing my grief into other people's spaces. And when I did that, I had a Reiki session, and something told me to wear white. So I wore white, and if you know me and knew me in 2017 and beforehand, I only wore black. That was it, just straight black. No one could talk to me. Sometimes you still can't. But I always wore black, but this time something told me to wear white, like a cream-colored white dress, and I did. And as this woman is doing my Reiki energy work, I had my eyes closed and she's like moving her hand, and you can feel where she is, right? And she's at my feet. By the time she's at my feet, there was a very firm hand that was on my womb, and it was my great-great-grandmother, and she spoke to me, and I saw yellow, and I saw the ocean, because our family's house in Honduras was right by the ocean, and I saw everything, and she placed her hand, and she said, you're here, and I've been looking for you. And that's when I knew, like, I'm supposed to do this work. This is important work. And because of that, I've unerased history in my family that would have left this earth if my grandmother had passed and my great aunt had passed and not told me these stories. And it is important work, because I think it's at the very core is like preventing erasure, by making sure that Black and brown babies get here safely, and that their parents have choice and options to start their parenthood journey the way they want to. But I could do this all day.
I was thinking a couple of things. One, one of the when I was pregnant with my 8-year-old, I told my husband one of my biggest fears in life was dying in childbirth. Like, Black women it's just this weight of this time that should be just amazing and beautiful, and it is beautiful, but just this fear of just death, right? As you're kind of growing life. during your presentation, I was looking at the images that you have of your great grandmother and thinking just how lucky you are. You have images, so many Black folks. I know, especially like my family's from Panama, from the Caribbean side, and my great-grandparents worked in the canal. They couldn't afford images. To have these beautiful images of women in your family is such a gift.
Yeah.
It really, really is a gift, and I see it kind of continuing in your work today, and it's just kind of so special to have.
Thank you. And I absolutely do understand, like, I think I acknowledge my privilege and access when it comes to photos. Did I have to dig for those? Absolutely. And I dug deep because everyone's like, we don't know where they are. I'm like, find them and do it quick.
Yes.
But there are a lot of folks that don't get photos, and that's the other part of my passion and the other part of my purpose. When I say preservation of legacy, I mean it all the way.
Yeah.
Because then I take photos of Black and brown families that don't generally get photos done, and I love to get portraits of every single person. I've had many times where I've taken photos of people and I'm like, you know, bring your mother, bring your grandmother, just in case. And they're hesitant, they do it anyway. And I've had one person, she brought her mother and she was like, I don't know, she's not really well, she had dementia. And I took this really beautiful photo of her, and I, for some reason, wanted it printed, so I printed a big 16 by 20 and just dropped it off to them. And a week later, she passed. But they finally had a photo of their grandmother. And I was just like, that is preservation of legacy. That's stopping the erasure. Like, there's proof that she was here, and that's so important. And that, I love this book because this is, I cannot get enough of it, because I'm like, this is proof that Black mothers are here, and we are here in many capacities. I really enjoy Nona's work. It's so tender, it is so soft and supple. Like, I want to like dive into some of the photos that are in this book. And then I love the powerful Renee Cox. Oh my God. Like, you guys had a really great lineup at this book, and I was just like, oh my God. And like I had said to you before, I like dove into all interviews that I could find of them. I went and bought books because of this book. I think I bought like 5 books after this book. So, and speaking of gifts, one of the questions that I had thought to ask you was like, what gifts do you hope to impart on others with this book? And also, like, you guys are a beautiful disruption to like what people know. So you're also another way of knowing, so thank you. But what are some things that you hope that folks get from this book? Go ahead, Leslie.
I mean, again, I just always am thinking, it's just a, get from the book. I mean, I think that all of, many of the artists have shared with us that they just really love the topic, that they felt seen in a way, that also it was a space where they could honor, they could think about openly about their mothers, or how you define mother, right? Other mother, collectivism, land, mother language. It doesn't have to just be like a biological experience of mother. And I think that they feel a kind of community inside the book. I can't speak for all of them, but some have reached out to us and just were really excited that they could take that meditation and think about mother, right? But also just, again, as a resource, just, as I said earlier, I've had a couple experiences recently with young people who just really want to think about the topic. Maybe they're interested in birth activism, or they're documentary photographers that want to photograph birth like you do. And to have a little context for how important it is to be seen and to witness and to be validated in that way through the reading has been something really exciting. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Everything you say makes sense. It's fine.
I think a gift and something that is just really tangible is the fact that this is open access.
Oh, yeah.
I love
We're so
I
excited
love
about
that
fact
about
that
Thank you.
anyone, anywhere in the world can have a PDF copy of this book. Academic books don't function that way.
No, they don't.
We couldn't even, if this book came out, we couldn't access this book because
It's
we're
an
not
academic. In that world.
affiliated with with an institution. So the fact that, anyone can have this book, to me, that's like the biggest gift. I was speaking with a young woman who was in a show, a young Black woman who was in a show that I co-curated a couple years ago, and she does work around her sister, and she wanted to do work around her mother, and she said, I didn't know, like, this was you. The fact that young people are accessing this book, and they can access this book, is pretty. That's the special part.
Yeah, I thought that was really special. I think I sent it to like 5 of my friends
Thank you.
who would otherwise not be
Yeah.
able to access it. I sent it to my mom, my sister too.
And the publisher recently sent us, just for fun, I don't know if you asked, I think you asked for the stats.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing to see globally, where it's been downloaded. Not everywhere, we haven't
It'll
gone
get there.
everywhere.
We'll get there.
But it was really affirming to know that like 40 copies over here and 40 over here, and that it's being downloaded at a pretty high rate. And we're really thankful too, because I think you can't really do a book about this topic and make it a $55 book. And,
Right.
And we want, our dream is that every who were some of the folks that we wanted to send books to, that we did send books to, and every Black-led, midwifery, and not even as much in the art circles. We want to get it more so people can really enjoy it,
More kind of like frontline organizations that do work with Black women and girls could have a copy.
I'm sending
in
it to
their
my
library.
people. Yeah, I'm gonna send it to my people too.
Yeah, and at one of the book launches that we did, we had a little table out front that people could buy a copy, and then we could send it to some organizations, and people did. And that was a great feeling.
Good. Yeah.
So that's another thing we follow up on.
I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts of this book, because access is so important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what hinders us from knowing our history, and there have been so many people that have come into Black and brown neighborhoods and have documented people without their permission.
Without their
a lot of
permission.
the time,
No collaboration.
telling their story, no collaboration, no. And then not giving them access to their photos, right? There are a lot of archival photos in the Library of Congress, and but there are also so many photos that have never been seen of Black and brown people that are behind paywalls, hidden in colleges. And so to make sure that this is accessible to everybody is really, really important. And I think blocking access and gatekeeping is like the worst thing ever. But I'm like, when you go into someone's neighborhood, or when you go into someone's home or into any sacred space, whether it's sacred to you or not, you have a moral obligation to make sure they have access to that project that you did for them, and not just using their faces because it's cool for now. Can we talk about that for a second?
I mean, hopefully we're seeing less and less. I don't know. Those conversations have been really prevalent in the past 5, 6, 7 years. Certainly with Black Lives Matter and protests. I mean, those are the conversations that people are having about who's making the picture. There's been a lot of effort. Brent Lewis is one who created Diversify Photo, which is a database so if you need a story in Troy, you can look up and find a local photographer rather than someone parachuting in. I mean, these are conversations.
Well,
Photographer of color that can tell the story.
Right.
So there are the resources out there, to your point about that comment that we heard from that wonderful French lady. So those conversations are happening, but look, not everybody's having those. So there's still folks showing up, not collaborating, not asking questions, not asking how do you want to be photographed.
Right.
Right. And that's something actually Nydia Blas, one of the photographers. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, I was thinking about Nydia, who actually started by doing a lot of work in Ithaca. She's a photographer from Ithaca, New York, also Afro-Panamanian, another Afro-Latina photographer.
Welcome.
But she did work at a Boys and Girls Club with some young women there. She doesn't call the women that she works with her subjects, they're collaborators.
Yeah.
And then when she also shows the work, she talks about
I love her work.
having an image. If there's kind of a more sensitive image, she has images on either side of that to protect the image.
Oh, wow.
So she is just so incredibly kind of thoughtful in how she approaches the people she works with, and even how that visual representation what it looks like and how it's displayed.
Yeah, I love that. That level of intention is necessary and important, especially when telling stories of Black and brown people, because like too many times our stories are being told without us, and I'm just like, this is narrated incorrectly. Like, I turn off films all the time when I'm just like, I know a white person did this. And they did not care. I can just tell. Like, sometimes like people's heads are cut off in a way that's like dehumanizing, or like the lighting. And I'm like, I like when, you know, photographers come to take my picture when I've been in news articles, they've always sent like a white man, and I'm always so uncomfortable, and I always try and say, hey, I would love, you know, this kind of lighting, and they're like, yeah, whatever, lady, and then they take awful pictures of me, and I'm like, this is why I don't take photos. I take the photos. And it's just so disrespectful every single time, and I'm like, I cannot deal.
Yeah, and the information's out there. You know, if folks want to do it right, the information's out there. I think a lot about, there's a great short piece that I show sometime in like a lighting, before we do lighting, and it's, I'm so sorry, I cannot remember the beautiful cinematographer of Insecure, the show Insecure, right? And everybody's beautiful on that show.
The most beautiful. Oh my
and
God.
It's always like they're in a dark club and everyone's still lit beautifully, and like it's just beautiful. And she talks specifically about how she went through film school and they weren't taught how to light darker skin, right? Anything but white skin, they weren't taught. So it's she's her mission. She's teaching folks how to light other, you know, non-white skin in beautiful ways, and it's, the information's there. It's not,
it is there, because if you watch Insecure and Moonlight was really beautiful too. Insecure is my favorite show ever. But Insecure and Moonlight, they were so beautifully lit. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke a lot about Daughters of the Dust too, and just the influence that like Daughters of the Dust had. Cinematography and just these like beautiful, incredible scenes, and that the influence that you know has had to on our work.
I think the first time we met, you mentioned that movie.
Daughters of the Dust.
I need to go watch another movie now.
Oh, yeah, you see it.
So now I have to go watch something else.